Hey everybody, it's Reckless. So, real quick, in this video, all credit to the gameplay goes to IGN for when they were at Gamescom 2015. So, today I will be doing part 2 of the Taken King Enlightenment videos. I'm sure there will be a part 3 and a part 4 if enough content does come out. So apparently it seems like IGN, and more so Game Informer, is getting the majority of the inside scoop on the Taken King. So, before we actually get into a little bit of more news, or more so new news, let's do a little clarification on things. As we know, Peter Dinklage is being replaced by Nolan North as the voice for your Ghost. However, Dinklage is not being replaced for malicious reasons. It all comes down to scheduling. Dinklage is already preoccupied with Game of Thrones, and it was just best for Bungie to get someone who was more available, such as Nolan North. Voiceovers is what Nolan does for a living, so he was, in the end, a better fit. Next, Game Informer has reported that Destiny's Year 1 legendary weapons are staying back in Year 2, which means you won't be able to upgrade them past 365 in the Taken King. However, with that said, now people are speculating that since exotics weren't specifically mentioned, you will be able to upgrade them in the Taken King. The reason for this speculation is because of the 2.0 update that we should be getting about the nerfs and buffs to some exotic weapons. But need I remind you that Deej's interview with IGN at Gamescom, Deej said, quote, "All Year 1 weapons will not be able to be upgraded," end quote. That includes exotics since they came out in Year 1. I hope that clarified it for people, even just a little bit. However, there is a possibility that that can change. I will put a link in the description below to the Game Informer article and the IGN interview. So given my current statement that I just made, until Bungie confirms the weapon upgrade aspect, I will continue to say that exotics are part of Year 1 weapons. It will not be able to upgrade when the Taken King is released. Yes, our current legendary and exotic gear, including weapons, will be obsolete when the Taken King is released, but not right off the bat. After a few story missions in the Taken King, green items will potentially be stronger than your current armor and weapons. There are 365 days in a year, except in a leap year, which is 366. Do you think it's a coincidence that the Year 1 legendary and exotic weapons have an attack of 365? Does anyone want to make a little wager on the attack stats of weapons before the next Destiny game and not the expansion is released? I actually vote for 730. Just saying. Anyways, moving on. The loot system is changing a bit. Luke Smith said, quote, "The loot back end pays attention to what you need for a meaningful improvement. It offers variety in armor or weapon type from what you've recently gotten and also tries to avoid repeating the same gear," end quote. However, that does not mean that getting the same gear won't happen. It just won't happen as often. So, as we know, Cade is the Hunter Vanguard, but apparently Eris Morn is a Hunter as well, even though she doesn't really look like a Hunter. Personally, I thought she was a Warlock. Next, as we already know, Destiny the Taken King will have an actual story, where Zavala, Cade, Eris, and Banshee, who is the gunsmith, will all play a role in the Taken King, and it won't be just your Ghost telling you what your mission is. However, Banshee will also have his own list of activities for you to do. There is no word on if the other Vanguard will actually have a role in the Taken King or who the main quest giver in the Taken King is yet, but I'm sure Bungie will do a reveal on that as they have before. In the Taken King, your ghost will be able to scan certain things in the environment. You will be able to scan many things like weapons, armor, or even dead enemies. Whether it'll give you lore for the things you scan, it is not said yet. Going into the Dreadnought, we know that it's home to pretty much almost everything in the Taken King. But as one reporter from Game Informer, Ben, said, quote, the Dreadnought was plenty big, and I think there are a lot of little areas in there that I still have left to explore. The space is full of disappearing platforms and hidden alcoves, and it challenged my platforming skills a little more than other areas, end quote. So be prepared for that. There is a new exotic that Bungie has broken into 50 pieces and scattered all over the Dreadnought. So good luck finding that. I'm sure someone will come out with a video with all the locations of the pieces, and I will myself if I can actually find them all. The weapon is actually called... Well, we don't really know what the weapon is called because it wasn't mentioned. Another Game Informer reporter named Matt said, quote, you're running into Hive and the Taken, but there are also a bunch of Cabal on board the Dreadnought engaged in their own fight against Oryx's forces, end quote. So you're going to be seeing a lot of struggling in battles while you're actually in the Dreadnought. There are a lot of areas in the Dreadnought that you won't be able to get into until you reach level 40, which shouldn't be very difficult given that the leveling system when the Taken King is released goes back to just straight experience. Also, quote, the Taken War, end quote, opens up after the story mode is completed and some of the missions are very challenging. In the Taken King, you will now be able to sacrifice some of your older weapons to help upgrade the newer ones, which is a plus, but also you will be able to trade in your Vanguard and Crucible marks for what is called legendary marks to purchase legendary gear and class-specific materials such as Hydronic Essence, Plast Steel Plating, and Sapphire Wire are being replaced with what is called armor materials. As I stated in part 1, your light level is still very much important, so each mission, strike, and the raid in the Taken King will all have a recommended light level for you to actually follow. New ghost shells will be able to have an effect on your light level, give you stats like intellect, discipline, or strength, and also be able to locate material items like spin metal and others. There was also a perk that allowed you to get increased glimmer for killing Hive, and possibly other ghost shells will give you the same perk by killing other enemies. Bungie has also said in the past that class items will also have an effect on your light level as well. So that's a nice little touch. I'm not really going to hit on the faction thing just because I already hit on it a lot in part 1. If you would like to check that out, I would put a link of that into the description below. However, there is a new emote slot that is being added to the UI underneath the emblem section. This will allow you to add emotes to your character and make them do different emotes. I wouldn't mind if after opening the emote slot, it allows you to choose your own emotes to do and change the emotes you currently have in a directional button, or even if you have additional emotes to use by pressing, I don't know, something like L2 in a directional button. It's like a kind of a little good idea, I guess. A new addition in the Taken King is whether you wish to show off your weapons in social spaces or not. Personally, I don't care if somebody actually sees my weapons, but stuff like that really matters to other people. So a few new things are being added to the tower. There will be a kiosk that allows you to look at and pull out all of your different emblems and shaders. Ben, the Game Informer reporter I talked about earlier, said, quote, I hope they include other kiosks that allow you to look at exotic weapons and gear as well, end quote. Personally, I agree with him. I can see something like that happening, and I think it would be a nice touch for those exotic collectors like myself. Banshee 44, aka the Gunsmith, will also lead you on your quest to find the Sleeper Stimulant exotic weapon that is a fusion rifle that charges a blast that ricochets off walls. No, he will not be coming with you. Game Informer has an article all about that weapon, and I will put it in the description below. The gunsmith will now also have his own reputation that you can earn. You will get reputation from the gunsmith primarily by testing weapons that he gives you. He will give you a set of bounties to complete, but you have to use that certain weapon he gives you in order to complete those bounties. Once you hit a certain reputation level, which at the moment is unknown, you will be able to order Arms Day weapons, which is a special legendary weapons from one of the foundries like the Soros, Omalon, or Haka. You put in the order and wait for your weapon to show up. However, I'm not sure if you'll be able to select the type of weapon or if it's completely RNG. Now let's talk about our good old buddy who appears every Friday, Xur. Xur will be getting a new item in his inventory called, quote, the Three of Coins, end quote, which you can purchase to boost your chance of an exotic drop on the next boss fight. Now there are a lot of questions and statements that come to mind about this. First, I want to assume that since you're buying this item from Xur, that it would cost either strange coins, most likely 3, as in the name, or motes of light. The reason why I say motes of light is because it'll give Xur another reason for motes to have a purpose besides reforging weapons. Plus, 1 mote of light costs 2 strange coins, so if you don't have an abundance of strange coins, then it'll be a grind again, which I feel isn't a bad thing for those newbies to Destiny. Whether the 3 of coins will be able to stack, as in if you would be able to use more than one at a single time, is unknown at the moment. Also, to touch up on the boss thing real quick, if these coins will boost your chance for an exotic on the next boss fight, what does that actually entail? Do mini boss fights like in the story count? Do strike bosses count too? Or is it only bosses in the raid? Once again, it is unknown. Speaking of strikes, each new strike will have 2 to 3 several different encounters that will show up. This keeps strike from becoming too repetitive and uninteresting. A new concept of strikes is that strikes will now have raid-like mechanics. Now, I'm not sure if this applies to the strikes that they are revamping or not, but I do know that this does apply to the Taken King strikes. Bungie has even recorded multiple versions of the dialogue, that way you can get new lore while doing these strikes. So if you are a lore hunter, then you'll have to do each strike several times in order to get all of that lore. Bungie is also fixing some AFK issues where, like in the Prison of Elders, if you are AFK too long, then you will be teleported to the fight. There are a lot of more enemies in strikes, so keeping all teammates together is probably the best. In the PlayStation exclusive strike Echo Chamber, the boss is named Restorative Mind, and in order to defeat it, you must have one player running an arc core between pillars in order to make the boss vulnerable while he shoots massive energy blasts. And if that's not enough for you, you also have to deal with his rotating energy shield that sometimes pushes you out of cover. Now, while we're talking about strikes, we're actually going to get into a little bit more interesting stuff. In the Sunless Cell strike, you will be facing off against Alec Hull, the Darkblade, where apparently there was a civil war amongst the Hive, and Alec Hull, the Darkblade, led the rebellion against Oryx and his consort, Veroc, aka Mama Crota. So yes, Crota does have a mother, and her name is Veroc. Hashtag Mama Crota, you heard it here first. When Oryx defeated Alec Hull, he imprisoned him in the Sunless Cell. We as Guardians go in to take out Darkblade before he can rise as a new threat just as bad as Oryx. So, just as speculation, Be prepared to fight Veroc, aka Mama Crota, also in the Taken King. I want to say either before or after Oryx. I say after because if you kill her son, then you kill her husband, Oryx, she might go Mighty Morphin Psycho Bitch and be stronger than Oryx is. So, moving on, the Strike playlist has changed into three categories: the Vanguard Legacy, Ursa, and Marmoset. The Vanguard Legacy playlist is all the strikes from Vanilla Destiny, aka when Destiny first came out before the DLC. Vanguard Ursa is a list of random heroic strikes that awards legendary marks and engrams. The Vanguard Marmoset is a list of strikes from the Taken King. But there is no word on what the Vanguard Marmoset actually awards. I'm pretty sure it'll probably be the highest tier gear that, they would allow a strike to have. Next, the weekly Nightfall is being changed, believe it or not. Now, they will handcraft the modifiers each week on a given Nightfall. So now we can expect different modifier combinations like Prison of Elders and probably newer modifiers too. In the Taken King, there are a ton of new bounties. Bounties specific for your class, your fire team, strike playlists, Trials of Osiris, and weekly bounties that all come with big rewards. However, Bungie hasn't said what those rewards are. Now, in PvP, there are a few new maps. One takes you to, quote, another tower, end quote, the Reef, and a map called Vertigo. Now, this other tower could possibly be the Bannerfall map. Because, well, Bannerfall indeed looks like it's in the tower. Now, I want to say this is actually located in one of those areas in the tower. I want to say behind that big, blocked off door in the tower north by the speaker. I want to say that map takes place in that area. And also, the map called Vertigo is a floating structure hanging over Mercury. It has a one-way teleporter that can be used to dominate a map or get wasted by the enemy team. As we know, a few new modes are being introduced into Crucible that are called Zone Control, Mayhem, and the Rift. Zone Control is what I feel Control should have been in the beginning of Destiny, where capturing the zone and holding it is how you acquire points and not by getting kills, like it works in Control. Mayhem is where everybody's super regen is increased to an insane amount and supers are constantly going off. I want to say you get your super every 30 seconds, and to win, you need to get 110,000 points. How do you get points, you say? Easy. You kill everything. Well, except your teammates, because friendly fire is off. The Rift is a mode that is like a version of Capture the Flag. You have a timer until an orb spawns, and when it spawns, one player must slam that orb into the other team's orb spawn point. You get extra points for style for doing a backflip into the enemy's orb spawn point if you're holding the orb. From game footage that I have seen, it looks like if the person with the orb gets killed, then the orb is respawned back at the original spawn point after the timer is back down to 0. So, real quick, here's a little random fact while watching a little bit of PvP for the Taken King. If you go Titan versus Titan, as in if you yourself are a Sunbreaker Titan with your super versus a Defender Titan with a bubble, it takes 2 hammers to destroy the bubble, unless the Guardian who made the bubble leaves the bubble and dies. Now, that two hammer thing could be totally dictated on distance, whereas if you're closer, it might take only one hammer to destroy a bubble. But from what I did see, the guy was pretty close. It took two hammers to actually destroy the bubble. So that concludes everything in part 2 of the Taken King Enlightenment videos. Let me know what you guys think about the video in the comments below. This is Reckless, and I will see you guys later.